Good morning, good morning, good morning. What's up, Todd? Welcome
So Frank,
welcome to the buy side, everyone. Where Todd and I we get really, really real about what's going on in the market and what is happening out there, and we get really, really serious about the business of inventory and what it's like really living on the buy side. So, welcome everyone that's tuning in. Todd, man, it's been a couple weeks. How are you, man?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm getting there. Shingles is nasty. That's all I have to say. This is the
Yeah,
nastiest illness I've ever had to deal with in my life.
yeah. So I had a doctor's appointment the other day, and my doctor, of course, being men over 50, he asked me right away, "Hey, do you want the shingles vaccine?" And I instantly said no, and I thought of you, and I'm like, I don't know, man, but I've heard such horror stories about it. Getting the vaccine, it's like I'm going to take a pass right now. So
Well, my father, who's 84, after I got shingles, he got the vaccine for shingles. And so did my mom, who's 78. They didn't feel great for a couple days, but they're good now. I mean, I'm not here to tell anybody to get a vax or not get a vax. Like I'm
right,
not going
right.
down that road. All I can tell you is this: you do not want to get shingles. Period. You don't want it. Like the rash, it's been over 2 months. The rash is gone, but the pain is not, and it does not go away easy. It's getting better and better every day. The trend line I would say is kind of like MMR. Okay, it's okay, it's going up. Like as far as my pain threshold on one column, right? Like the pain's getting better, but it just flattens. It goes up, it goes back down a little bit, it goes back up. So if people say how you doing right now, I'm about a 7.5 out of 10.
Okay,
So,
so you're
but
getting better.
a few weeks ago I was about a 5, and a few weeks before that I was about a 3. So
Yeah, man.
I'm getting there. I appreciate you asking. It's a
Yeah,
test
man. I
from God,
remember when.
test from the Lord.
Yeah, man. I remember being on. When was? I mean, that was probably a month ago. We were on with David Long on an episode,
I think it
and
was longer than that. That was when I first got it, like right
yeah,
after. It was awful.
and initially you said, "Hey, man, I'm feeling much better," and then you kind of hit, kind of a downward spiral, and
Yeah.
so happy, definitely happy to hear you're coming back from it and feeling a lot better. That's for sure, man.
Appreciate that.
It's you know, every time I hear about these things, I'm just reminded of how important our health is and how important our families are. And, at the end of the
Faith.
day, like,
How
you know,
important my faith is, brother.
what
Let me tell
I,
you.
that's where I was going.
Yeah,
like,
for
like
sure.
I have this, I have this mentality of, my 5 F's that I always keep in line, right? Like my faith, my family, my friends, my finances, my fitness. Like those things are so meaningful, but faith is really at the foundation of it all. Because it's easy when you're feeling like crap, to just lose faith at times, right?
Oh yeah. Start telling yourself stories. Um, the devil gets at you, man. That's all I can tell you. He just gets right there
Yeah, man.
and
Yeah,
right here.
yeah.
So you gotta, yeah. So, anyways, thank you for asking. I am getting better. I've had a ton of people reach out to me, friends, family, guys in my Bible study, but actually a lot of people in the industry too, right? When I couldn't go to NADA, I threw it out on LinkedIn. I had a lot of people reaching out and praying for me, and people still like texting me afterwards. So I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Thanks to all
Yeah.
everybody. Actually, it's been
I know
helpful.
I've been praying for you, man, for
I
sure.
appreciate that. Well, the prayers work. You and a
They
lot of people have been praying for me, so I'm getting there.
they absolutely work, man. They absolutely work. And again, we always start every episode with doing a little bit of talk about our faith, because at the foundation of it all, that's who we are, and
Number one.
and our families, and our wonderful spouses keep us in line as well. So
Yes, they do. Speaking of faith, I think you need to have faith if you got your hand up in the lane right now at the auction, brother.
yeah,
If you're
man.
hitting that bid button on simulcast, you better have faith in what you're doing, and hey, faith you're going to sell that car. And I think that's probably what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, we're going to spend some time talking about the market and where the market's going. And, Todd's been in the industry, obviously, for many, many years, and I've been in the industry for many, many years. And there's there's some people who have just jumped in, perhaps, that are looking at this and saying this can't be how it always is, and we assure you that it's not. But we want to talk about some things that we see and what we think will help as we move through what is a very, very challenging season. So, with that, I'll ask a couple. I think we have a couple topics that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
But before I even go down that path, you and I are going to be together next month, right?
Miami, Used
Yeah.
Car Summit, Miami. Yeah. So Bill Zadite and the auto remarketing people are putting it on from Cherokee Media. And, you know, Bill reached out. He's a good guy. He's a really good dude. He's like, "Do you want to moderate a room and talk about used cars?" And I'm like, "I love talking about used cars. You bet. Let's go." So I hope we get really good attendance. And he said, we need a moderator, but then we need people to actually help be at tables to talk about some of these subjects like acquisition, reconditioning, um, you know, merchandising, all the used car basics. And the first person I thought of obviously was you, right? So I'm excited to be there. And Frank and I are not pitch people by any means. And we know, like, I know, Frank, I know you know this, like, people's time is really valuable, especially in the middle of April to get out of the store. But I can promise you, like, these conferences that Bill puts on and some of these other conferences like Soto and stuff, they're really good. And there's value in obviously just sitting and learning and hearing people share experiences and best practices. But I really think, and I can share this wisdom with everybody here listening and watching, there's really value more than anything else in building relationships with other people in the industry because you
Yeah.
never know. And it's always about who you know at the end of the day. And I've learned that over my career, over 30 plus years in this business. It's about who you know for a lot of reasons. And sometimes it doesn't, you don't realize it for a while, but like this is the conference where there will be a lot of people in this industry that you can learn from sitting at a table or having a cocktail or having dinner or maybe playing golf or pickleball or whatever. But it's going to be awesome. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, man. I'm super, super appreciative that you asked me to host a table in the room with you. Means a lot to me. And look, I'm with you. I've only been outside of really the corporate walls for a few years now, and the number of people that I've met that just welcomed me in with open arms. Like all I had to do was pick up the phone, and so many people are just willing to talk to you. And that was a little bit of a shocker to me because coming from the other side, the corporate side, like we were always kind of led to believe that it was so tough in the industry to meet people and have loyalty and all these things that you hear about within the walls of some of these corporations. And I got to tell you, like I haven't experienced any of that. What I've experienced has been the opposite. That so many warm-hearted, good people. Yeah, there's some people, some one-offs here and there, but the circle of people that I've been able to just be involved with has been nothing short of amazing. So
The auto industry community is, and those of you who understand that term and know exactly who I'm talking about, is really solid. Like it is really, really solid for sure. And, the folks that, work or did work kind of more on that corporate side, there's a reason I think that a lot of these big companies do that. They don't want, first of all, they don't want their people getting poached, right? I think that's
right,
number one because there's
right,
definitely a lack of talent in the industry. So they don't want, if you work for CarMax or some of these other big companies, they don't want you out of conferences because someone's going to try and steal you. They're either going to try to steal you, your ideas, or both. So they just kind of like, I don't want to say brainwash, but I guess maybe that's the best word to describe it. Tell you that you don't need to be out there. You just need to be here with us, right? Be a part of our
yeah.
little commune and
I,
right for a good
I'll tell
reason.
you, man. I heard it. I heard it. For many years behind the walls of CarMax. Hey, you don't want to leave out there. Like it's pretty rough, and stay within these walls. And then I got outside and look, I'm going to name a few guys that I know that are ex CarMax guys that are leading some big organizations. Paul Peters, he's with the Napleton Group, former CarMax guy. Alden Abdeck, he's with Castle here in Chicago. Jay Clark, John Murphy, some of these guys I'm going to have on the show. Matt Reed with Gerald Jones. So a number of CarMax
What
guys
about
that were
Burnell? What about Burnell? Didn't Burnell?
Burnell King.
Yeah, he's down in
Wow,
Hudson.
I would never forget about Burnell. He and I, when I first started at CarMax, Burnell was a senior buyer in Chicago. This is back in '03. And so he's at Hudson Automotive. So there's just all these wonderful guys that, cut their teeth in CarMax, got a ton of experience, and are leading some pretty big organizations. And you know what holds true to all those guys is they're very process driven, and they're very disciplined in what they do every day to go out there and acquire cars. And I think right now, when we think about discipline, right now is the time you have to be extremely disciplined in what you're doing. And I'm gonna take a minute because every week I write a update, and so I just want to share that update with our audience and talk through this a little bit because I think it's important right now. And this is why Todd and I, we just got together and figured, no guests this week. Let's just talk about the market and let's talk about what we're seeing, because the one thing that you can absolutely rest assured is that Todd and I, we're actually in the thick of it. We're actually watching auctions every single day. Todd tries to still buy cars. I still buy cars. And so we're not just talking hypothetically. We are looking at things because we are in it with everyone out there that's on the buy side. And so what you're feeling, we feel as well. And, when I look at this right here, says it all. 5 straight weeks, still record territory, right? 5 straight weeks that we've seen the Manheim Index continue to set a record in relation to all-time highs of where the market has been. For the 5th consecutive week, every vehicle age in the Manheim MMR Index posted a gain. The 3-year-old index rose, the 6-year-old index rose. And here's the challenge, and here's what we're faced with, Todd, more than anything. When you look at Black Book data, we see Black Book data on the rise, significantly higher than 2025 or 2024. Retail listings are pulling back. So that tells us that there's some dealers that are having some pretty good months.
Every
right?
dealer I talk to that I know personally or that I consult for is having one hell of a used car month. And it started like second week of February, third week of February, once the weather broke a little bit, and it hasn't stopped. Like it has not stopped. Everybody is crushing it selling used cars. Obviously, we talked about this like in December, right? What were we told? It's going to be a record year for tax return. I think the average tax return check is 3,300 or 3,700. I can't remember which one it was, but it's 3 grand plus, right?
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
told this, right? You and I talked about this. We posted about it in December. You better buy inventory. You better stock up. Take your turn rules, throw them out the door. Don't worry about it. Well, this is now what happens,
And now we're here.
and these little charts you have up there show the insanity that we're seeing, literally insanity in the auction lanes, whether they're virtual lanes or they're physical lanes. And I remember those days, standing in the lane or getting up early and putting a bunch of cars on a bid list, and all of a sudden cars were going 1,500, 2 grand, 3 grand past my number. And my number I always thought was all the money, right? And you scratch your head going, am I doing something wrong here? Does somebody know something I don't? What is going on? Where are you retailing these cars that you're buying for 2,500 over MMR, plus an auction fee at 800, plus another 500 to get the car home, plus another 1,500 in the shop? How are you doing this? What is going on? And you're scratching
Yeah.
your head going, am I doing something wrong? Should I
Yeah.
be buying cars? And
Doesn't
I think that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then what the challenge is it's this piece right here is what everybody is feeling, right? This non-luxury piece of cars that there's only a wholesale to retail spread of about $2,500 right now. So that is a huge, huge challenge for us in that, I go to the auction, I buy a car, and I have no money left by the time I get that car back. And so I wanted to just share those things because I think that starts to frame our conversation a bit with where things are going to go. And so when you think about this, right, and you think about, so the Manheim Index just hit another record high. Now what? Right? So that's what everyone's feeling. That's what we're dealing with. And so, Todd, what do you say? Like, what do you say to the dealers who they see this and they go, I'm frozen. I'm not quite sure what to do in this sort of market.
Well, a couple things. Number one, you should be making every single deal on every single trade, period. Right? Unless you got to put stupid money in a car, take it in at the curb. I was having a call yesterday with one of my dealer clients, and we're looking at, quote unquote, look to book, right? Well, look to book, there's always more to it. It's not just did I put all the money in a car, right? It's a lot of things. Did you step up to the trade? Number one. Number two, what's your process in your showroom? Are you handling people properly? Because if you don't take in a car, maybe you didn't handle a customer right. Maybe you didn't have a car for them. Maybe you couldn't get them financed. Maybe you didn't qualify them properly. Maybe they should have been put on a used car when they came in to buy a new car. Who knows? So it isn't just did I put all the money in a car? But what I really wanted to talk about today was some of these lower end cars. These $500 cars, $1,000 cars, $2,000 cars. We looked at some appraisals yesterday with one of my dealers, and you know, a Buick Verano, 120,000 miles, 16 Buick Verano that was picky, right? But not a horrible car, Pennsylvania car. They put $1,000 in it and didn't make the deal. And I'm saying to myself, and I'm trying to show them, I'm like, guys, look at like that car right now. Maybe in the winter it's worth $1,000, but right now that car is probably worth two to a quarter if you got to put two to a quarter in it to make a deal. Because who wants that car right now if the car goes to an auction? The guy with a smaller used car lot, right, or a smaller operation is
That's
going
right.
to take that car. He's not going to spend $2,500 or $3,000 to recondition that car. He's going to basically sell it as is on his front line, which you really can't always do as a new car dealer. And he can probably get $4,000 for it and still make himself $1,500.
Yeah.
So put $2,000 in the car, make a deal, right? If those people have bad credit, um, maybe they got a couple grand down. Maybe they got $3,000 down now because they got their tax return money. But if you only put 1,000 in it and you walk them, somebody else is going to put $2,000 in that car. And I think that that's one of the big things. And I said to the dealer, I said, do your managers they go to the auction? And he kind of scratched his head. He's like, what do you mean? I go, these guys should be going to the auction and standing on the block or watching an online auction, right? Watch ACV, watch Open Lane, watch simulcast, and don't look at the late model cars. Watch what the junk is bringing.
Yeah.
Watch what these cheap cars are bringing, because if you're in the used car business or even the new car business, a good portion of your trades that you're taking in are lower end cars. And
Yeah.
that's where dealers miss it, in my opinion. They miss it in a lot of cases. They walk people or they miss deals or they undercut their retail gross in a lot of cases. And then they sell these cars short wholesale because they don't know what they're worth, especially this time of year. Do you agree with what I'm saying?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think right now is a time where everyone in the industry should be watching an auction at least for 30, 45 minutes when the auction first starts. I get it. Everyone's busy. Everyone, you don't have time throughout the day just to sit there and watch. But at some point during the day, carve out 30, 45 minutes and just watch. Watch your buyers. Watch online. Watch and see what's going on, whether it's on Manheim, whether it's on ACV, whether it's Smart Auction, OpenLane, all of these places you can go and just watch the inventory go through and figure out, like, hey, what's happening on these cars? I was on OpenLane the other day just looking at cars, and I'm going to tell you, every car on the first two pages, it was either CarMax or Carvana was the high bid. Every car, there wasn't a miss. And so when you look at that, it's dealers are struggling to find the inventory, and you're 100% right that you have to turn to your own inventory first and foremost and figure out, okay, my own customers that are coming in with units, how do I give them the maximum amount of dollars, right? How do I give them the most that I possibly can for their car? You only do that by understanding what those cars are worth, because MMR, we know that's a lagging measure, right? It's a lagging measure. So the only way for me to truly understand what the market is doing, I got to live it. I got to be in it. I got to see it every single day and know, okay, you know what? I can't touch Suburbans and Tahoes at the auction unless I'm willing to go 2 or 3 grand above MMR, right? Now, there's some pockets where you may find one that's a deal here or there, but for the most part, you're not touching those vehicles. So what does that tell you about your customer that comes into your building, that's in your service drive with a Tahoe Z71 that's all jammed out? I'm going all in. I need it. I got to have it. I got a customer that wants it. I want to put the most money on that car that I possibly can to create some level of urgency in that customer. I'm going to make sure that there is not a single car that comes in. I remember at CarMax, Todd, where we would sell, and I think I've mentioned this a number of times, but I want to say it again because we would sell 40, 50 cars on a Saturday in one of the stores I was in, one of the first stores I was managing, 40 to 50 cars on a Saturday. But we were also doing 150 appraisals on a Saturday, right? It was a 3-to-1. And I know, the industry, I know Brian Kramer, he and I have talked, and David Long and you and a number of people say, hey, look, you got to be at 2-to-1. CarMax, we were running 3-to-1 on appraisals. Why? Because it mattered that much. And I guarantee you they're still running those numbers.
Of course they are. Yeah,
right?
You bet.
They're still running that number because it was a discipline that they had, that they knew, hey, we got to go out there and we got to source inventory from our own customer first. And then I can turn to the auction and go fill some holes and fill some gaps. So that's what I'm looking at. That's what I see. Look, I think you're 100% spot on with what you said. But when I see that margin compression that's happening, where the spread between wholesale and retail of $2,500, look, I want our individuals that are out there that are watching, that live every single day on the buy side. We feel what you're going through. We know that spread there, it's not there. And so we put that information out there to make sure that, all of our dealer principals, all of our GMs, that they know what the individuals on the buy side are up against, because it's hard right now to go out there and grab front end gross. Would you agree?
It is, but there are ways to still be successful and still be profitable. So I'm going to think about like what I did when I had my stores, especially during times like this. Number one, I already talked about it, right? Don't miss a trade, right? Don't miss a trade. You already talked about the service drive. You should be giving a customer, every single person that goes to the drive should get a number on a car, an offer, every single one of them, period. No excuses, right? Everybody gets an offer on their car. Going into the database, like we talked about, again, there's some awesome software out there to do it, like AutoAcquire and others. But, you know, really look at a CR and try to like read through it a little bit and maybe find some cars you can shape and build a little bit, right? Like a guy that used to work for me, who I worked with, I shouldn't say work for me, he really worked with me. He was one of my mentors, Barry Silvers. And Barry was the best. And Barry always used to use the term, let's shape that car. Shaping that car meant taking that car that may have looked like a turd at the time, whether it was a trade or whether it was a car at the auction with a 2.8 CR, but it really wasn't a 2.8, it was a 3.8. But this is where human beings are still doing CRs and the AI is not that good yet. Okay. And that means you have to spend a lot of time doing some diligence when you're going to buy cars, right? Going through a car, reading a Carfax closely, looking at a CR, looking at the pictures, not rushing, going to the auction like the CarMax people do 24 to 48 hours before the auction starts, and making your list, walking the cars, bringing your OBD2, okay, starting the car up, smelling it, plugging in your tool, walking around the car saying, you know what? You know, Odessa says this car's a 2.8, but in my mind, this car is a 3.5, and the tires aren't that bad. And I think I can put this car together for X. So that will eliminate some of the online buyers that aren't going to do that at all, because they're going to see 2.8 and they're just going to put it off their list altogether. Right. So you got to get creative. And also, too, another thing, and I was sharing this with another guy I was on a call with yesterday. Get creative with wholesale, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to have to sell cars short retail, then shape, right? Shape your wholesale cars, clean them, spend a little bit of money, fix a bumper, fix a fender, clean the inside, clean up the rims,
Yeah.
okay, on
Yeah.
that $1,500 car. So you don't leave it dirty and just let it sit as is and run it through the lane. So it brings 1,900. And at the end of the day, you make nothing. But maybe you clean that car up and it brings 3,500. And after recon, you're still making $1,500 on the car
Yeah.
wholesale. That
Yeah.
makes up in gross profit for the cars that you have to pay too much money for, that you're probably losing money on the front end, right? Maybe make it a little on the back. So that's how you pick up extra money. My father always told me this, Frank. He said this business is nickels and dimes, right? It is nickels and dimes. And to this day, he's right, right? It may sound old fashioned, but it's true.
It's 100% true. And you know, I want to circle back to something you said, because you said CarMax gets there 24, 48 hours ahead of time. They're making their list, they're walking the cars. That's 100% the case, right? Like, and we started this long ago, and it's something that my partner Justin Campbell, he's the owner of Unique Auto Sales. He reminds me of this all the time, that hey, CarMax teaches guys absolutely to be wholesalers first, right? Because we are out, we were out there walking cars, understanding that, look, the experience and what we put ourselves through and put our buyers through on a regular basis, right? They learn quickly, hey, that 2.5 car, that car is really a 3.5, or, in some cases, yet that 3.0 car is really a 4.0. And, your experience and what you've learned over the years, probably supersedes maybe that CR rider that just started a couple of weeks ago that's out there riding CRs
Yeah.
for you, right?
It also goes the other way, buddy. That 4.0, that 4.2 might be a 3.
That's
And
the
we all and that's a whole other conversation.
that's a whole other conversation, but
Yeah.
it's all relative to
Yep.
living this life on the buy side that we live, is being able to understand those CRs and understanding where I can push a little bit more. But then I also want to touch on something, because some of this comes down to being able to sell through certain things. I was talking to a dealer the other day who, and I showed him a CR. We're talking about it, and I just asked him the question flat out, like, "Hey, can your sales team, can they sell through these dings, or are you going to repair them?" He goes, "No, we'll sell through that." Right? Those little PDRs on the car, right? They're not really visible. I'm going to sell through that. The PDRs that are on the roof of the car, that's on a pickup truck, I'm not even going to fix those things. So I don't even really consider those things in the CR, right? So those are the things that help, I think, dealers grab a little bit of that extra gross, if you will. And when front end gross is hard to come by, you're 100% on point with saying, hey, it's about nickels and dimes right now. And wherever I can grab a couple extra nickels, I need to turn to that direction. So we're not, again, Todd and I, we talk about everything. We talk about, whether you're buying at auction, whether you're buying in the service lane, all of this logic applies, right? Because, if you have someone in your building that goes out and looks at a couple of PDRs on a car, and they just absolutely smoke the customer because it's got these PDRs, well, you probably have a problem. They're probably doing the same thing at the auction, and maybe worse at the auction, maybe even walking away from those cars that could be an advantage for you to own.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something else, right? You just made me think of this when you mentioned it. You know, a lot of dealers, most dealers, probably 98% of them don't call out the defects in their digital merchandising like CarMax and Carvana does. So if you really want to overcome some of those defects, then just be transparent as you possibly can and point out in your photo carousel on your retail website, ding, dent, scratch with a photo, just like they do with CarMax, just like they do with Carvana. Why? People are like, I don't want to do that. Then the customer's going to pick it apart. No, they're going to trust you,
Yeah.
right? They're going to
Yeah.
trust you because I read this story the other day. Okay. I live just outside of Charlotte. I live in Mooresville, North Carolina. The story's in the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if you read it or not. There's this guy. He's this kid in his 20s. He used to work in sales and he used to work in F&I. He decided he's going to start his own business. And his own business is this. He has a buying service for retail people. He charges them $1,000 a car Okay, where in it he will negotiate the deal for the customer.
I've seen that.
This person's job shouldn't exist as far as I'm concerned. God bless him. He's making a G note a car, which is probably more than a lot of dealers are making on most of their used cars on the front end. Okay. Why? Because people don't trust car dealers. They don't think they're transparent. They don't trust the experience. They don't want to get jerked around. They don't want to be in a showroom for 3, 4, 5 hours, getting yanked around, thrown into finance, three managers coming up and talking to them, somebody grabbing them as they're ready to walk out the door, bringing them back inside. People don't want to go through that nonsense. This guy's making $1,000 a car. People, Carvana, they'll never be successful. Well, why? People don't like going into car dealerships. When are we going to
Yeah.
understand that you cannot continue to do this to customers? And now with AI, which we should probably talk about at another time, right? Like you cannot outsmart these people anymore. They've got AI to help them negotiate deals.
Yeah, look. So we'll dive into the AI piece here in a couple of weeks for sure, because CarMax just introduced their AI, obviously with Chat GPT, and going and making sure the customer has complete transparency and can they don't have to negotiate.
I
They get
can't
it
wait to
all.
do that with you. I want to do it on the screen with you together. And
Yeah,
I want to go through the smoke and mirrors and see what's real and what's not real. And we're going to do that together. That's a great idea.
absolutely. I think I can't wait for that episode, and I think a lot of people are going to take some things from it. Here's what I'll say around the transparency piece. People want that transparency, whether it's in what they're buying, but they more importantly than what they're buying, they want that transparency in what they're selling to the dealer, right? Like they don't want to have to go in and spend time trying to negotiate a deal when they know that their car right now is worth top dollar. Everything that we were pointing to tells us that cars right now are worth top dollar. Now, I say that, but I also say we have to be a little bit careful, don't we? Because every year there's some dealers that get burned with, hey,
Yeah.
I'm going to go out and I'm going to
Oh,
bulk buy a
yeah.
bunch of inventory and get ready for the.
Yeah.
And right now, like if you're out there and your mentality is that you're going to go bulk buy a bunch of inventory, I'm going to just tell you, be really, really careful. And I'm going to advocate and tell you, I would not do that because
Those
you
were
will
those were the
absolutely
guys.
get burned,
Those were the
right?
guys that I liked because I used to buy cars from them in like June because they didn't retail all the cars that they bought in April, in February, in March, and then they didn't retail them because they didn't price them accordingly to market like fast, right?
Right, right.
And all of a sudden those cars aged up, and then it was come June or July when it's real hot out at the auction and no one wants to go, retail soft, and they got to cash them. Well, guess who used to go there and buy them? Yours
Yeah,
truly, right
yeah,
here, right? Just
yeah,
like you,
yeah.
because exactly what you're talking about. If you're going to be out aggressively buying cars, period, whether it's in your drive, trades, the auction, your database, wherever, you better recondition them extremely efficiently and cost effectively. But more importantly, if you don't put a car on the money on day one and you think you're just going to hold out for gross, unless you got something real special, right, in a very low days supply car, you're going to lose your ass. I hate to use that word, but that's
Yeah.
exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, look, we just showed our audience, right? We just showed them that the spread between wholesale and retail on average is about $2,500 right now. So if you went to the auction and you bought a car for 17 grand and you think you're going to get that car back and sell it for 21 or 22, all of the data shows you that you're in trouble if you think that that's going to happen,
You're going to
right?
break even if you're lucky.
Realistically, 17 grand, I'm selling that car for 20 grand, maybe, I hope. And hopefully I'm going to get my dock fee. I'm going to get my back end. I'm going to get all these other things that keep the motor running. I'm going to get that car through service. My service writers, my service, my technicians, they're going to get to build a car. So I have to look at all those things. But what I cannot do is buy that car and think, oh, I can sell this car above market in this climate because the customers are active. No, customers are active, but customers have more information than they've ever had to be able to effectively negotiate the deal that they want, right? Information transparency is paramount right now. And I think at sometimes we try to outthink or outsmart the consumer, not thinking that the consumer has They have these devices in their hand, right? Every single day they have it, and they can go right in there and, hey, let me go to chat, let me go to Perplexity, let me go to all these tools that are out there and just ask my agent, my AI agent, what I need to do in terms of buying a car. So we have to stop thinking that way. And I think, look, those dealers, again, this is just a word of caution. If you're out there, you think you can buy a bunch of cars right now, get top dollar for them, hold for gross. Look, the market will come down. It's just a matter of when. It will come down. And the last thing that Todd and I want to see as we try to educate, we don't want to see any dealer get burned. All right. Like we want to try to help caution you from doing that. Right.
Yeah,
So
the other thing I'll say too, Frank, right? Because we're gonna be running out of time soon. But watch these incentives on these new cars. Like the new car business is starting to flatten out a little bit. Like it's not great. It's okay. It's
yeah,
pretty good, but for the spring, it's probably not as good as it should be. The average transaction price on a new car is about 50 G's, right? Give or take, but that's the average retail price. The average on a used car is what, 26, 27 grandish, like right in that range retail.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
That's a huge difference. Let me tell you something. These manufacturers, they say, we're going to keep it at a 45-day supply or a 30-day supply. Well, you look at some of the day supply on these new cars with some of these OEMs, it's starting to pile up, right? You're going to get rebates and you're going to get lease deals, or leasing's going to come back. Okay. Rebates are going to come back more than ever. Interest rates, hopefully, like they go down a little bit more. So you're going to see some incentivized interest rates too. So that late model, low mileage used car that you want to just go pay all the money for right now and raise your hand in the lane because your front line's empty. Well, let me tell you something. That car could be very, very close to the price of a new one, or in some cases, even more if you don't sell it and you start to see these incentives go up. And you can mark my words, there will be a lot of incentives this year, especially from the probably end of second quarter into third and fourth quarter. You're going to see a lot of rebates on cars this year. I will guarantee it
yeah.
for sure.
I completely, totally agree with you. So I think we're running out of time here. We're right coming up to about 40 minutes, and we wanted to keep the show around that time frame. But look, I think there's a couple of things that we talk about, right, or have talked about, and we've talked about in the past. We talked about today, but the one that comes up and continues to come up, there are no bad channels, right? There's just bad strategy, right? If you're approaching the auction in the same way that you're approaching private party acquisitions, the same way you're approaching your service drive, the same way you are approaching direct from rental. If you have the same strategy for all of those channels, somewhere you've missed the boat. And so what I would say to that is reach out to Todd, reach out to me, reach out. There's a number of people in the industry that are there to help, that have consulting companies. I'm not as much of a consultant as Todd is, but reach out, ask some questions, right? The other piece of this, like, I think there's a few things that when you think about how you go out there and how you start your week, if you're listening to this and it's Monday and you don't have a buy list for what you've sold from the week prior, where the market is. So there's a couple things that I think, Todd, you do, I do, right? I'm always looking at historical sales. I want to stock, and I know there's people in the industry, and this will probably be a topic for another call as well. I believe in stocking what you sold, right? Like if you sold that piece of inventory and you had leads on that piece of inventory, I need to go out and I need to acquire that inventory again, right? Provided, and this is where there's a caveat, provided that wasn't a 100-day-old car that I sold at a loss and it didn't make sense for me. I don't want to go and replace that car. But if I have leads on a car and it's fresh inventory and it's selling, I need to stock that car again. I need to go out and buy that car tomorrow, right? The other part of this is when you think about your buy list, that buy list for me, and I learned this years ago at CarMax. I took it with me to Off Lease Only, and I still use it to this day. I look at historical sales. I look at what the market is selling, and I look at current inventory, and I try to match those things up because that's what I learned long ago. Like CarMax was so effective when they were out buying cars because they had their buy list in hand when they went to the auction, and they knew exactly, hey, here's what's doing well in the market. I need to go stock those. Here's what's not. I want to still buy that car, but I'm going to buy that car at a deep discount if I possibly can, because it's not moving that well, and I'm going to still own it, but I'm going to undercut the rest of the market. So they understood the market. They understood their competition. They understood, most importantly, what absolutely worked for them. So not only were they trying to stock what they sold, but they were also had a formula that said, I'm going to go out here and I want to grab my unfair share of the market by understanding what my competition is moving and what's happening in the market with day supply, with scarcity, all these things. I need to understand that when I go out there on a Monday and I'm sitting down and saying, okay, I need to go out there and buy 40 cars this week. What 40 am I going to buy? It better be baked in data, especially in this climate that we're in.
Totally agree. And we'll close it up with this, in my opinion, right? Like people think, well, CarMax is publicly traded, Carvana publicly traded. They got all kinds of money, they got all kinds of technology. Let me tell you something. As a dealer, you have access to all the exact same data that they do. It's in the software that you pay for, whether you use VinQ or you use vAuto or Agile Auto or whatever, right? Or LotPop, or it doesn't make any difference, right? All the data is there. The question is whether or not you are actually, number one, you understand it, right? And number two, you use it and know how to apply it to everything that you just said. So there is no excuse. This business comes down to a couple things. I call it the D's, right? Details and discipline,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
Those two things, right? We were talking about yesterday at David Long Show. Details, discipline. If you don't have that, then you cannot go all in the used car business, or really just the car business in general, as far as I'm concerned, but especially used cars, because you're dealing with another D, a depreciating asset.
Yeah. And I was talking to, I was talking to Chris Benvey a couple of weeks ago. And we were digging into his vAuto, and he pulled up the used car report. That was the first thing we looked at, was the used car report that showed, hey, here's what I've sold over the last 90 days. And then he just went and drilled right into that report and said, hey, here's the cars that are working well for me, and here's what we're going to go after, right? So we had that buy list that he had already generated, and he knew, like, hey, with AutoAcquire, hey, I'm going to turn my dials up, and I'm going to go after these cars, right? If I'm at the auction and I see these, I need to target these. Everybody in the organization knew, from his mouth to everyone else, that, hey, here are the cars that are on the buy list that we absolutely need to go out there and target. And then the last thing that we'll leave you with today is something that Todd said. When you have that buy list, you cannot sit in front of the computer, get that buy list, and think that, all right, I'm just going to watch the lane, and when they come across, I'm going to start bidding. You need time and energy to go through, and Todd said it best, discipline, to sit there, go through that CR, go through everything there is about that CR, and understand whether that car is truly a 2.5 or is it a 3.0. Is it a truly 3.0 or is it a 4.0? You need to be able to dig into that CR, and you're not going to do that when the car is coming across the block. It just does not work that way.
Frank, I lost you there, buddy.
Yeah, I'm here.
So I lost you for a second. I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you 100%. You're spot on. I guess what was that show? They used to say, "Be careful out there." It was a cop show. I forgot what it was. You remember that show?
I do remember,
And I can't remember what it was. It's like one of those old TV shows where the police captain's out there and he's getting everybody fired up for the day before they went out to keep the patrol cars. And he'd say, "Be careful out there. If you are out there at the auctions right now, be careful out there. Like, be really, 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 really careful, and don't get caught up with the other guys who literally is a bobblehead going like this, bidding on every car. Just because you won't see that guy in about 2 or 3 weeks. I got news for you. He'll be gone, right?
Yeah.
Or a month from now, you won't see him. He'll probably pop back up again in a few months, if that, unless he's going to be out of a job. So don't worry about that guy. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. And so, man, Todd, it's always a pleasure when you and I can chop it up a bit. And hopefully, for those of you that are tuning in, hopefully this helps you a bit. Share the episode, share the previous episodes. Every one of these things is just there really to give information and figure out ways that we can help drive the buy side forward. And that's ultimately our goal. You're not going to hear Todd and I pitch much on these shows because that's not what it's about. It really is about the education side of things and trying to help everyone out there that's living on the buy side. We thank you guys for tuning in. And until next week, man, happy buying.